is my favorite teacher is my social studies teacher, and she did a very similar thing to Roa's teacher. However, it wasn't for the insurrection, it was for the Ukrainian crisis. We were supposed to be talking about, I don't remember, I think it was like Italian unification, and she was like, you know what, this is more important than this is more important than history that happened 200 years ago. This is happening right now. And we even went through and connected, this is how everything that happened 200 years ago led up to this current invasion and this current crisis and tragedy, and showed us exactly how everything works together and how it's a domino effect. And if we don't learn from our history, we're going to repeat it. We do lots of lessons about nationalism and how it can be a good thing and how it can be a bad thing, and how do you create a strong government, but how do you balance that strong government with people's rights? And so things that, you know, happened during the French Revolution are still relevant to us now. And I think that's she does a very good job of combining those things.
I would say for me, my favorite teacher is my AP Gov teacher this year, because though we probably should be learning more government in the class, and we probably haven't learned as much as we should for the AP exam coming up. But most of the whole class, this whole school year, has just been discussions every class about things that are happening in the world right now. He gives us a space to give our opinions on it and to have healthy discussions. And at any point in time, if there's something that you want to talk about on something that's going on in the world, our country, or even Maryland or Columbia itself, he gives you the opportunity to not take over the class necessarily, but to make it a space where everybody can give their opinion. And he created a space where everyone's voice is heard equally and no one voice is greater than the other. And he makes it so that everybody's opinion is as important as everybody else's. So I think he's my favorite because of the rich discussion that we have on topics affecting us daily.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Zach. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. One experience in the classroom that really stuck with me was when I was in AP government. My government teacher ran a model Congress and like a position, and we all simulated how Congress actually works. And it was so cool just to see kind of like this system that at the time we didn't know a lot about, and we were able to help simulate it and see how the system actually worked. And it really prepared us for the exam, but it also really allowed students to learn more about how things work. It was just a really cool experience.
All right, I think that you know, a lot of what you guys are talking about, you know, it's really important. I'm hearing lots of, you know, teachers being honest and open to having difficult conversations and to, you know, really connect and make things relevant to the students in their classroom. And I think that that kind of naturally leads to another question that I had for you guys today, which was, how have your teachers approached sensitive topics in your social studies classes, right? So we're talking about whether it's you know, current wars or events, or you know, things that are happening in your community, or even sensitive topics that you're learning about in, you know, in the past, right? How are your teachers approaching those topics? And to our panelists, this is an opportunity for you to talk about times when those sensitive topics were approached successfully and how that worked, but it's also an opportunity to kind of talk about that really didn't work. You know, we were talking about something and it was a struggle, and here's why I think it was, and how we could maybe make it better.
For me personally, I think whether it was a success or a failure really depended on the teacher and the class. I feel like my my earlier classes, the ones that were more the quote unquote lower level, more general education, the required classes, those tended to have worse conversations with worse outcomes, including a student accusing a teacher of being racist in front of the whole class over nothing. It was all of us agreed he was being like, everyone was like, the teacher did nothing wrong, and the teacher could not handle the situation. And it was just mess after mess after mess. Whereas my my higher level teachers, they're all able to sit down and say, I don't understand, or let's have a conversation, and they're able to direct healthy debate and direct healthy conversations among us, with them, among like, and they're able to translate that to outside of the classroom. Whereas I think in my experience, the lower level teachers weren't able to direct that conversation into a healthy place, and it almost nearly ended every time in complete derailment of the class, a shouting match, something completely unnecessary that didn't need to happen.
Thank you for that perspective. Anybody else want to jump in on ways that we're having these conversations that are working, but also that might be a struggle, and why?
I mean, I'd like to agree with Ren. It really depends on first of all, the teacher and the connection that they have with the students, but also the students and how engaged are they with the topic and with the subject in general. I know, like, in a lot of my classes, it kind of feels like we're taking them to take them. And in those classes, like Ren said, there's less activity and less willingness to participate, which may not lead into a shouting match or so, but it does lead into fruitless discussion that doesn't exactly end class with something new or a new thought in one's mind. In, let's say, my government class, for example, my teacher really tries to take into account multiple perspectives. But let's say when we were talking about the civil rights amendments, or when we were talking about slavery, we tried to he first of all emphasized how important the topic was to how history has evolved and how it influenced history, but also saying, if anyone feels uncomfortable, please like step outside, we can talk later, and please be mindful of other opinions and ideas. And then he would go on to show how slavery and the civil rights amendments were more than just talking about the 3/5 compromise, but how their lives were impacted and how they were hurting inside. Or when we're talking about Korematsu versus the United States, it was spun in a way that he spun it in a way that it wasn't prospectively in the US aspect, but showing how those Japanese internment camps were struggling and the environment around that. So I think it really depends on how the students react and reflect to the conversation as well.
I think personally, whenever we're talking about like controversial topics in schools, times that I've seen it go well is when teachers do a good job of like kind of moderating it by making sure students have like a certain amount of time to speak, kind of like maybe like a like if you're familiar with that, because usually it can devolve into like a shouting match. But if we actually give the students like a minute or a minute and a half to say their points and then allow other students to rebut in like an ordered manner, it prevents people from getting very angry at each other and just yelling at each other. Because if we're simply making sure that students are saying their ideas and then other students rebut, that it's less likely to devolve and it's more likely for actual ideas to be exchanged and students to have healthy view changing conversations.
Thank you guys for those thoughts. One thing that I'd like, Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this Zoom thing, and I just opened the breakout rooms. Please don't go anywhere. I'll reopen them when it's time to go there.
Thank you. My next question for the panel is to think about sort of in what ways has your social studies coursework helped you develop skills like communicating positions, taking informed action. Perhaps it was like a project-based or inquiry-based assignment that you guys did. How has that prepared you to be civically engaged? Because again, all of our panelists here they've got resumes of awesome civic engagement, whether it's in their school communities, their local community, student government association. In what ways do you think your social studies coursework has helped prepare you for that and to take that action?
I can jump in if no one else will go. So in my government class, my teacher makes it an effort to have hands-on learning opportunities. We've simulated a mock trial, we've simulated mock Congress legislation, we've wrote bills and passed them over Kahoot. And we've really tried to make government as accessible and easily accessible as he could make it. And that has really helped me, first of all, understand government much better than reading the AP textbook or reading a document and taking a test on it. I now know for mock trial how to really look into somebody's witness statement and create creative questions to try to bring out points that I want to make to win my side. And honestly, that has improved my communication. It's improved my creative thinking skills that I've taken up into my SGA and speaking to other people and trying to influence them to partake in civic action as well.
Does anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it would be my law and citizen class that I took last semester. We did a lot more. It wasn't a whole lot of sitting down and reading. It was more going out around the school and surveying people on different governmental topics. Or there was one where we were reading Supreme Court cases, and then we took that, based our own opinion off of it, made surveys, and went around the school for 3 weeks surveying different teachers and students and admin, things like that. So I would say interactions like that. And then we've also done several mock trials in that class. Interactions like that have helped me build more relationships with people within the building, and have also law and citizen. It has also taught me more about about the practice of government rather than just reading it from a book.
Thanks, Gabby. Anybody else? All right, and this I think kind of goes or is similar to that last question, but what motivated each of you to get civically engaged or civically active? I know that members of our panel have started organizations. So how did you guys, I guess, identify what needed to change or what you wanted to do? And then how did you go about kind of starting either your organization or saying, I want to get involved in SGA, or I want to go and volunteer with the county council.
Hmm.
Was that something that put that you guys just sort of did on your own? Were you inspired or pushed into that direction? How did that work for you?
Okay, well, I guess I'm one of the panelists that hasn't started an organization. Hopefully I will in the future, not sure. But I think something that really influenced me was COVID. I started a lot of my advocacy and a lot of research about how to get involved during COVID-19. And in all truth, I joined my middle school's student government association because I was bored and I didn't really know what to do with my time. But then when I was there, I ran for secretary. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, how am I going to make this school better? How am I going to improve the relationships now that we are in a virtual setting? And I've kind of taken that in mind. I've started researching more about what's happening around the world in Black Lives Matter, the insurrection. A lot of those have gone into what I take into account. And right now, I'm really big on student advocacy. I'm really big on advocating for bills, writing bills, trying to turn out as much student impact as we can, because as so many people have said, students are the future. And if we don't have a civically engaged future, then what will happen to our society? And I'm really big, as I said, on spreading this impact. And I've talked to senators, representatives, teachers across the state, joined numerous organizations trying to talk to the students. And I think that, yes, COVID was such a big change for me. It really helped open my eyes to what groups have faced and what minority groups have a long way to come.
I kind of got involved in like student advocacy almost like accidentally. I work with the Office of Health Equity in Anne Arundel County, and I went to one or two of their events. And after one, a person who worked there asked me if I'd be interested in like volunteering and helping out because they needed an extra youth representative. And that kind of blossomed into my student advocacy. I got started there. I helped plan events to engage young people. And I saw how incredibly important it was to get students, the community, parents, members of the community engaged into something, get really build community when making civics. So that's how I started, and then that kind of branched out into my work in the state and local government and SGA.
Um,
Uh,
you can go.
Okay, thanks. So I'm a freshman, and at the start of the school year, I remember I went to one of the SGA meetings and I realized that the freshmen didn't have a class council. I don't know if they usually don't, but we didn't. So I asked if I could like start one, and they said, yeah. So I went around to different people, and I started the council. So now we have a class council for the freshmen. And I like ran the meetings and such before we got a sponsor. But it's 4 grades, so each of the grades should have a council that represents all of them. So I'm still working on making it more functional, but yeah.
Thanks, Scarlett. At this point, I'd like to kind of turn it over to the audience here. Are there any questions that you have for our panelists? I did see that there were 1 or 2 in the chat there. One question for the panel was, in the chat, what have you learned about the influence of powerful lobbyists versus the influence of ordinary citizens? Do any of our panelists want to take that question?
I'm assuming this question was for me because I mentioned speaking to some of the representatives. I think, well, for one, just to give background of why I was speaking to these lobbyists, it was for my regional SGA, and I was in charge of leading a group, and we were talking to, for example, Senator King and a couple of the representatives like Chris Van Hollen, and we wanted to kind of advocate for a bunch of different bills that include guns, LGBTQ, mental health, financial literacy. And so it was a group of like, I think about 9 of us. And we were trying to just get them to support these bills that were being going through the assembly. And so while both are really important, the influence of lobbyists is that their impact is, I guess, more statewide, countywide, national-wide, while the influence of ordinary citizens is to help influence these lobbyists to kind of take action and to kind of reconsider an issue in a different light.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for our panelists? One question that just popped up in a chat: how does the mix of activities in the classroom impact learning? Lecture, games, simulations, field trips, guest speakers, Socratic seminars, etc.
In my personal experience, I think you need a mix of all of these things to actually make the lesson stick. I've sat through classes that was just the teacher with a white PowerPoint, black lettering, read for the things that were important. That was it. I don't think I learned anything all year, and I'm really passionate about social studies. I love learning. I would come home every night and just say, this is what the topics on the PowerPoint was. Mom, can you give me an in-depth discussion? Whereas my classes where we sit there and we draw out the maps and we do simulations and we talk to each other and we have debates where you're actually forced to hear the other side. My personal favorite are, I hate them when we're doing them, but I learn so much, is when we have to do a debate where you don't get to choose what side you are, because I think it gives the most balanced understanding of both sides, because everyone is forced to learn something.
Ren, I'd like to follow up with you on that, if you don't mind. What do those conversations look like? So how does that type of lesson work in a classroom where you don't necessarily get to choose your side, you're just sort of assigned it?
Usually it's just, like a randomized list. Half the class is on one, half the class is on the other. And we're usually given like a day or two to sit down as a group and research more in depth into the topic, learn what we're supposed to be arguing about, develop our ideas. And also with those kinds of debates, it's super important to learn what the counter arguments are going to be. So we all sit there and we learn both sides. And then for like a day or two, and then like on the 3rd or 4th day, maybe we'll sit there and literally split the class in half and just have a discussion. I've had them where they were like mock trials. I've had some where it was more just like a Socratic seminar, and things like that.
Thank you. Another question for the panel: how can we prepare more teachers to incorporate these discussions into their everyday lessons?
A way that one teacher in my school did it, which I thought was really insightful and didn't take up a lot of time away from her lessons and lectures, was she actually kind of made it a grade / present, like a grade for students. And basically how she did that is each student would be assigned to give a presentation on the big headlines in international affairs for the last week. So the student would give their presentation about the last week, and then they would then go into a discussion and talk with other students about it. So it both didn't take a lot away from like lecture time, but it also gave a dedicated time at least once a week for students to learn more about what's going on and have a really in-depth conversation about those headlines and go beyond the superficial like level of it.
I would say the best way to prepare teachers is to make sure that not all of their lessons are just slides and PowerPoints. And even if they are, not that there's anything wrong with that. I can't learn based off that. But even if they are, ensuring that they pause and allow space for discussion on what they're saying, rather than them just talking straight for 45 minutes and then you leaving the class gaining nothing. So making sure that more discussions are incorporated, and then when you start off more discussions, that can branch out into more activities where the students feel that they can voice their opinion on whatever we're learning in class.
I think another important thing is the variety in how you incorporate these discussions, because I don't have a good example of like a way it was worked really well, but I have an example of a way it was really badly done every day. Every day for our warm up, my teacher would show us political cartoons. And this was a class that was not great. They were not very on topic. It was a mess, to say the least. And every day we would just go in and be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk about this. I don't care what the discussion is. We just didn't want to have it because it was the same old, and we knew it would be a disaster. So I think being able to change that discussion a little bit, do something different every day instead of just, we all knew what was going to happen. We're going to go in, we're going to look at a political cartoon, and my teacher's going to say something boring about it, and then we're going to do a lesson we don't care about. So that's how you don't do it, I think.
I was going to add on to what Gabby said. I think along with the slideshows, being able to have discussions in between. Also, when we're learning about different historical events, being able to relate them back to, what's going on in our current world is also very important, because I think a lot of the time students can get kind of just bored out of what we're learning because, like, okay, so that happened 200 years ago, and how's that affecting me now? So I think being able to, again, relate that back to what's happening in our world right now is very important.
I mean, for me, I find this, I guess, question a bit difficult because, I mean, in some government classes, let's say for my AP government class, we do follow a strict guideline because we are studying for the test. And after that test, my test is this Monday. So I'm praying that I do well on that. But after the test, that's when we have more room to discuss these topics. And so I do get how teachers can find it difficult to see, okay, how can I incorporate this current events when I need to talk about the Federal Elections Commission by this Monday? And I think it's really just seeing what connections you can make with, when talking about slavery, you can incorporate Black Lives Matter. When talking about, say, Pearl Harbor, you can try to incorporate the Ukraine war, or talk about the connections that you can make between different political leaders. And I think that's one way that one can try to incorporate these discussions, not making it a grade per se, although I do agree that's a really good idea, but just putting it into the back of somebody's mind so that they can research it later and they have the opportunities and the means of doing so.
All right, thank you, everybody. We have sort of reached our time for our larger group discussion. So at this point, what we're going to do is jump into some breakout sessions that will be led by our student panelists. And so this is just an opportunity, again, to sort of continue the conversation. So we will go ahead and get started with those in a second. I will remain in this room for a little while in case anyone has any questions, and then I plan to kind of bounce around, but feel free to send me a message. And this is to our panelists as well. If something comes up, you need someone to jump in. But again, this is an opportunity in the breakout sessions for everyone to kind of share out and have a voice and talk about civics education and social studies. So I really want to before we go, just thank our panelists for their openness, their honesty, and this rich discussion about social studies education in the United States, or in Maryland rather. So thank you very much.
So before we move into breakout rooms, I just want to double check. I believe that we have note takers and facilitators for 2 of the rooms. Nathan and Elizabeth are going to rooms 1 and 2. For room 3, I thought we had an Alexander, but I don't see him on the list. Is Alexander here and I'm missing him? If not, then room 3, Zach says he can facilitate the conversation. Shannon, could you possibly take notes?
Yep, will do.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to open the rooms now. Or I guess they're open. You can go now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need help, I believe down at the bottom on your toolbar, you should see the little 4 square breakout room button. If you click on that, you should be able to see your join button. Anybody having trouble?
I can't see it.
Are you on an iPad or a desktop computer?
A laptop.
If you're on a laptop, you might try moving your mouse down to the bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
Black toolbar should come up and you should see kind of towards the middle a breakout room icon.
Nope. The middle, it says share screen. Wait a minute. Okay, I got a join button.
Excellent. We'll see you soon. Lois, do you need a hand moving? Joe, what about you? Do you need a hand moving? Not sure if Lois is here with us right now. How are we doing?
Great job, Rich. That was really, really good. Really like hearing these kids are so, they have such profound insights, and it's so useful to hear it.
Yeah, it's just now the challenge is taking that and figuring out how to get more teachers to sort of flip that instruction from the stand and deliver.
Well, to do it in this political climate too is not easy. We've talked about that pretty extensively.
Yeah.
And it takes some courage for teachers to do that.
I really was surprised. I thought the shutdown and moving to virtual schooling was really going to help a lot of teachers, but many of them just found ways to do what they had always done and stuck with the same. All right, we have Regina coming in. Welcome, Regina. Are you with us today? Oh, she's. Welcome, Regina. How are you?
Oh, okay. I think I went into the wrong Zoom. I clicked the wrong one. I'm supposed to be in the one my daughter's in now. Sorry.
Okay, which you're okay, you can find it?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Good luck.
Uh-huh.
I wonder who your daughter is.
I've noticed a lot of teachers that have switched back to obviously in-person learning and are utilizing technology, but like, I guess, one of the questions sometimes I have when I walk into a room is like, why are we still using Pear Deck? Right? Like there are some really great ways that can include, and have every student respond and give them that opportunity to have a voice where they're not necessarily, speaking in front of the class, that kind of thing. But how, thinking about, is that the best use of the technology in the classroom, and trying to get that shift, like, we did this, we prepared these lessons, but are they the best use of that technology now that we're back face to face, and we want to get kids having those actual conversations with one another, where we're not using the screen and the chat feature as sort of a crutch.
I wonder too, if moving back into the classroom, but being forced to sit in your box and not encouraging kids to collaborate and move around the room, and the teacher needing to stay away from the kids for the sake of, I think that reinforced some of the stage on the stage. So Regina looks like she's trying to come back in. Let's ask her.
You may be in her daughter may be in a breakout session.
Let's find out. Hi, Regina. Oh, connecting. Hi, Regina, you came back. Who are you looking for? Maybe they're in one of our breakout rooms.
Oh, that's probably what the problem is. I'm looking for Gabrielle Oshadia's room. I was just in that room, but I lost connection.
I can move you there, no problem. Here we go.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
I'm learning all sorts of new tricks today. She's in room 1. There you go. You should be able to see the join button. Nice. Should I go spy on my kid? She's in room 2.
Your kid is amazing. I mean, that
my kid's a little keyed up with exams coming up. She's had one teacher who's been out for almost a month, who we all love, and she had serious health problems. Another one's gone to facilitate exams, so he's not doing any review. And then
she got Zoom bombed by her brother, so that you may hear about that later.
She texted me.
Okay. Get him out of my room. The hazards of doing this on a Saturday at home.
Yeah. So Rich, did you want to go see any of your groups? You're on mute.
Yes, I think I have the power to join here in the breakout room. So I'm just going to go hop in and see how it's going.
Jeannie, I didn't get I don't know if because I moved from being the host to giving up the host, that I lost somehow. I don't have the join a room.
Oh, do you want to join?
Yeah.
I can assign you. Does it matter which one?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I'll put you in Nathan's room. There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Rich, you want help?
Nope, I got it.
Yay. All these tech tools.
Jeannie, are you there? Do you know, so once I was just about to broadcast a message to the breakout rooms that we had about 5 minutes left.
Yes.
At that point, do we want them to return here or do we
Yes.
want them? Okay, so not the main breakout room.
Right.
Okay,
'Cause I'm going to give them reminders of how to get back to the main room.
okay, awesome. Thank you.
Things are working so far.
So from what I see there, they're having good conversation. So I was kind of just bouncing in and out. So yeah, it's working out well. Hopefully lots of good notes.
You know, I didn't start the recording very early. I don't know if you remember anything that was in the very beginning conversation.
Yeah, I sort of, as the kids were talking, were just kind of jotting down, you know, a lot of what they were saying. So hopefully, the positive is that, you know, they were talking a lot about, you know, having good discussions and discourse in their classroom and having those conversations. And Maryland Council this year, our focus was, you know, discussion and discourse in the classroom. So that's positive. It's just a matter of brainstorming. How can you get the message to more people? Because that's, you know, it's sort of with those organizations, you're kind of broadcasting that professional learning to a group of teachers that have signed on for it. So how do you get the
I
message out?
spent a
to
lot of
teachers
time
that-
researching that, like that old method versus new method. How do you get the older teachers to learn new tricks? And when I finally came down to it, I was like, I think I'm going to just concentrate on my dissertation on the newbies. Like I'm going to look at first year teachers and try to connect how their backgrounds informing what they're doing, because I don't know how you teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could do what you do every day. Let me check on my other kid. I'm trying to get her into the journalism one in the second round.
All right, sounds good.
Sneaking her in through the back door. Okay, I have 11:18. Should we give them a 1-minute warning, or have you already done that?
I was working on it. Apparently I'm too verbose in the chat. I think I gave them a 3-minute warning in it.
Trying to remember, we have kind of a 10-minute cushion, and then the next session starts at 11:30. Actually, technically on an hour plan, the next session really starts at 11:35. So we're good.
Okay.
You'd think I'd know all this stuff. And over and over and over again, I've made a million graphics. Finally occurred to me this morning that I should do one for middle state social studies. It's like, oh wait, I knew there was another partner. All right. 11:20. Should I close the rooms?
Yeah, I would go for it. Sorry, I was looking at the agenda.
Give some 60 seconds.
I'm so used to using Google Meet instead of Zoom. So like Google Meet's just a tab in Chrome. So if you try and bounce to different things, it's like right up there. And then on my Mac, the Zoom like disappears and then flips back, and I've got to figure out how to get the screen back.
I'm the opposite. I use Zoom all the time. So when somebody uses Google Meet, I'm like, wait, where is it?
Right.
So welcome back, everyone. Rich, did you want to say a few words?
All right. So it looks like I'm trying to see if we have, most folks are back. There we go. We refreshed. All right. Well, again, thank you guys for participating in those breakout discussions. I'm really excited to kind of review our notes that, hopefully captured a lot of the rich conversation that was happening there. Does anyone have anything, sort of great that they want to lift up from those conversations before we hear from Jeannie and next steps for today's summit?
As a result of our breakout session, and I want to thank Dr. Pugh for the opportunity. This is Barbara Desmond. I'm the education chair for the Maryland State NAACP. A few years ago, we submitted to the national NAACP a resolution, part of which was based on an earlier resolution from national on civics education and values education. National adopted the revision, and that is policy for over 1,000 branches of the NAACP throughout the nation. As a result of today's meeting, I can say that the Maryland State Conference, which represents 25 branches throughout Maryland, we are going to issue a formal request to the Maryland State Department of Education that if it has not been developed, that the State Department organize a group and develop a curriculum pre-K through 12 for civics education. And we're going to talk to them not just about the positive, the positive implications of it, but also the negative. Because with certain children from certain, the disparities in arrest records, et cetera, we need people to know about law enforcement and justice, et cetera. And I think that that would be an advantage. And in addition to the more proactive, we need to include some of the reactive, and we might get some attention. And I would hope that others would join us in that. I see that Lois is here, such as the League, et cetera, to just support us when we attempt to do that. I think enough is enough. We just can't depend on, as I said in the last session, different agencies at the local level. We need consistency, and we need a statewide effort, more than just a test. And that letter will go out in the next week.
Dr. Desmond, I think one of the things we weren't able to keep talking about was the state does have some of those guidance, but we don't have any requirement for a number of minutes of social studies at the elementary level. And I would just advocate that you might consider that as part of the letter, because unless districts and schools are told that they have to spend a certain number of minutes a day or week at social studies, they're going to do what some of the people said in the last session, where there's one day a week for 15 minutes, they talk about something and related to social studies, and they don't again. So I think that time, required number of minutes for elementary would be very, very meaningful Just wanted to add that piece in, but thank you so much for that advocacy.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Desmond. And I would just add too that in the Maryland Blueprint, there is no mention of civics education or social studies. While, you know, math and literacy are kind of dominating the document. So again, thank you for your advocacy.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. We are going to move on to the Roundtable 2 session, and you have a choice to make at this point. Actually, you have several choices to make at this point. If you'd like to go back to the main room, you are welcome to do that. Or if you'd like to go directly to the breakout sessions, some of them may not be open quite yet, so don't get discouraged if the Zoom link takes a minute to let you in. But to get to your choices, it's the same process we followed before. So I'm going to put some information in the chat. Our website, mdcivics.org, has all of the links under the Summit tab, under the login, the Summit login choice. And our password is #EmpoweringMDYouth. And it's capital E, capital M, capital Y. So the first letter of each word is capital. #EmpoweringMDYouth to get us to our second round of breakout sessions. So I'm going to leave. If Rich, you could help people along, I'm going to go back into the main room, which you're all welcome to join us in the main room. Or if you're ready to, if you need a little break, head straight to the breakout room. They'll begin at about 11:35. So we have about 8 minutes. Thank you very much, everyone. Oh, you know what? I think I am host. Let me make you host just so I don't break everyone. How do I do that? I know how to do this.
Go to the dots next to the name. Yep.
Hi, George. Can I help you get to the next phase of the summit?
I'm okay. I was just listening. Appreciate it. I'm from Delaware. I'm very interested in all of this as it applies to Delaware and vice versa.
Excellent.
So, thanks very much.
Thank you.